Hey there, Stephanie Joy with all things Social Security and the law practice of Joy Disability. Here's a short little segment from our recent live stream Q&A that we have every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the YouTube channel, All Things Social Security. Enjoy, and if you have any questions, leave them down below in the comments, and I will be sure to get to them. Thanks so much. Bye-bye now. Hello. Happy Wednesday. We live stream. You guys are well. Looks a little quiet. Everything's fine here. Typically busy week, of course. Got a lot of people doing a lot of different things. We've had a lot of workshops, if you will, to make sure everything is jiving with everyone's roles. So that's always fun. I see we got Kevin Johnson in the house from Tennessee. Morristown, if I recall. How you doing, Kevin? Good to see you. And Sherry Romero. Good to see you, Sherry. I'll get to your question shortly. Sherry says, I'm nervous. I'll say something wrong. It's a telephone hearing. Okay, so the first thing that you did wrong, no offense, Sherry, is why did you do a phone hearing? I would have done an MS Teams hearing. Sometimes our mental state is visible on our face, in our expressions, and now you just lost that extra evidence by having a phone hearing. Don't know if you can get that changed at this juncture, but I don't recommend it. I don't recommend it. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to stress you out anymore, but I'm trying to give the word out for everybody else. But, you know, regional lines can surely differ. I have colleagues who love phone hearings. I just don't, because I don't want to give up that one piece of evidence. To me, that can make a big difference in the case. And, you know, it's why we have the rates we do, possibly. You know, part of the reason. It's all those little things put together. Deanna's in the house. Hi, Deanna. ENS says, hello, just had my hearing, and the vocational expert stated that I'm hypothetical number one. I think you mean that in hypothetical number, it was 3 jobs in the economy. Hypothetical, stop, 2, there are 0 jobs. I gave you a little saltine before. Are you going to eat it or are you going to drop it? Hypothetical number 2, there are 0 jobs. How do you feel this would impact the judges? Well, hypothetical 1 and 2, you can't win under. Hypothetical 2, you can win under. Forgive. So the judge has to find that your residual functional capacity, all those little things in there, match hypothetical number 2. And then you'll win based on that vocational expert's, you should win based on that hypothetical expert's opinion that with those kind of restrictions, hypothetical number 2 guy, there are no jobs that hypothetical person could do full-time, sustained basis, et cetera, that exist in substantial numbers in the economy. So you're praying that it goes with number 2. Yeah, pray that it goes with number 2. Unless you can grit out in some other way where it won't matter. Fingers crossed for you, though, that it is the result that you deserve there, ENS. I know you've probably been going at it for a while. Everyone seems to. Okay, so Rangal says mental CE 2 weeks ago, medical CE, x-rays yesterday, 3 hip dislocations. Ouch, girl. Right thumb, RCL tear, long COVID brain fog, fatigue. Why so much focus on the hip dysplasia and not the fatigue? Too ambiguous? Yeah, fatigue is very subjective. Anyone could say they're fatigued, and there's no proof, right? I mean, I could say whatever I want. I could say I stayed on my head all day, and I got headaches. It doesn't matter because I have no proof. It's not that those things are not helpful, but another reason being he has to do your residual functional capacity. And the first question is, what is the exertional limitation? That would be your sedentary, your light, your medium, your heavy, your very heavy. So fatigue isn't going to define whether you can only do sedentary work. Now, how much can you lift? That's not a fatigue thing. That's a weakness thing, or a, pain thing, or a unsafe thing. So that's why they have to do all those other things, because the exertional limitations of the RFC, the sedentary light and all that, is based on physical and only physical, not cognitive or anything like that. They look to how much you can lift. They look to how much you can be on your feet, standing, walking, how many hours in an 8-hour day, which would be like your typical full-time work day. So that's why they have to focus on that, because if they can get it to an RFC, and I don't know what your vocational profile, your age is, Ringal, but if you fall into one of the medical vocational arenas, if you're over 50, then that RFC defines whether or not you met prong 1 of 3 required to win under the grids. If you didn't, you can't win under a grid. And then you have to try to win some other way, which is having to prove that all 12,000 jobs are impossible for you due to all those other limitations in your RFC, your fingering, your handling, your non-postural, your postural limitations, your environmental limitations, all those kind of things, and your other symptoms. That could be the fatigue, if it's well documented and you've complained about it at every visit. If you've gone to chronic fatigue specialist because of the fatigue,
I always urge everybody who has a fatigue issue as part of their disability claim, because it's long-term fatigue now, get a fatigue specialist. Definitely complain about it to all your doctors you see every single time, but get a chronic fatigue specialist. And at least then it shows that you are actually trying to really, you're going to someone who specializes it. They might be able to help you more. They're going to recognize things. I always say too that they're hard to find. So I think you might have to go out of state, not drive out of state, of course, but maybe you can get one for telehealth and they will continue to monitor you and speak to you and figure out your symptoms, send you for blood work. So the blood work, seeing where that's at, it can help. It can give dietary guidelines too that might help, et cetera, et cetera. But it just shows that, you're monitoring it. Is the fatigue getting worse? Is it staying the same? Is it improving with any kind of anti-fatigue medication? Is it not? All those kind of things. I mean, ideally, for any major impairment, specialists, not just your PCP. PCPs are definitely important, very important, particularly if you're sure to tell them all of your every single ache and pain and problem. But a specialist really spells out that this is really an important limiting condition in your life versus if you're just going to your PCP every 6 months. You're doing a lot of other things in those other 6 months that you're not telling about, If it was really interruptive of the quality of your life, you'd be getting a specialist. That's why I'm always pushing for specialists. Dolphin says they went back 2 years ago when wages were reported by his employer. I think we're talking about the twin. He said the employer did the right input amount. He did fully stop working 2 years ago. I think what you're saying is maybe income showed up in a year for a quarter or the time period after which he said he stopped. That's weird that it happened later on, but usually that's kind of figured out when you're winning your case. Yeah, well, I'm glad it worked out for him. Someone made a mistake and entered the wrong thing. Willie says, congressional inquiry is easy. Just reach out to your representative. They will have you sign a release and take it from there. They're not going to take it from there. You have to explain everything and provide the substantive, concise, organized explanation. They're not going to be like, tell me your problems, tell me, So you could say they'll take it from there. No, you have to lay it out for them. I suggest you do it in an organized fashion and not in 10 pages, but in one. And you can always include attachments like the SSA letter that said this. In the case where someone's just waiting on a DDS, that is probably the easiest one, because you're saying, hey, I filed my application here, and it's been 3 months and I still, I don't know if it's at the DDS, or I do know it's at the DDS, but I haven't been assigned to an adjudicator and it's been sitting at DDS for 3 months. You could say that. You're probably not going to have paperwork to attach because they don't send you one saying, we got your case, but we're making you wait. So it's not like you have anything. But yes, just telling them, and they will just reach. They just ask a simple question. Hey, what's going on with this case? The guy says he's been waiting for 3 months. And it's very simple. But for the more complicated things, like the one I was just working on the other day for somebody, we're actually going to send the explanation of how they screwed up. They miscoded a filing. Somebody was filing for DAC, and then they turned it into something else. I don't know if they deleted it or whatever. But that's going to be where we're proving the filing date, because there was a letter back. The fact that it was a medical workup, that helps prove it was not a child minor auxiliary benefit, which they're trying to say it was filed under. But then why was there a medical workup? Because you don't have to be medically disabled to get a child's benefit as an auxiliary minor under a parent. Those things, that kind of case, Willie, is like, I literally put it in chronological order and see attached, and it'll be attached. And I'm saying in the letter, it hasn't gone out. If I go out today or tomorrow. This is a consult, by the way. So I guess even though we're not saying it to the congressperson, we will use it for the congressperson if the SSA doesn't fix it within 2 weeks, which is in my letter. Please jump on this. The lady's been trying to get them to fix it for months. And I think someone at her office is really, really not well versed in the job. And it's just kind of like, hey, I'm assisting so-and-so as an advocate. Basically, poop or get off the pot, fix her thing. This is what needs to happen under the law. I mean, sometimes you just have to teach them. So that's kind of what that's about. And it's saying, please have this fixed in 2 weeks, or else the next step, unfortunately, is a congressional inquiry. And I'd like to think that when congressional inquiries occur, I'd like to think that it gives them some sort of experience ring. Like that office, there's a ton of congressional inquiries. That means that manager's not doing a great job. Versus another office where there's very few. I mean, there's always going to be ridiculous congressional inquiries. It doesn't, you know what I mean? Like some people they don't like that they got denied, so they think that's worthy of a congressional inquiry, which of course it's not. I mean, that's just not their job. They can't put their finger on the scale of your merits and force someone to render a different decision. So yeah, I guess going back to the question of do you do congressional inquiries? Yeah, this one happened to be because I was doing a consult, and then I just kind of added probably another 4 hours for free onto the work. But that's me. I get like that. That's why my people are always reining me in. JC's in the house. Thank you for all the great info you do. Thank you. You're so good at explaining all the legal SSA lingo. Oh, that's nice of you to say. I know I talk fast, so it's going to be hard for some people to hear me, but I'm glad you think it's in a way you can understand. I hope so. I try not to use legalese. Obviously, you have to use some of the legal lingo, and I try to remember to explain what acronyms are. I know I wasn't doing a good job of that when I first started doing this. I'll just be blowing through it because you just forget. And now I'm a little more, in tune. Now, would this be Trika? If I saw an I in there, I'd say Trisha Brown, but I don't see that. I'm going to say Trika. Hi, I'm 45 and I applied for SSDI. And it's nice to meet you, by the way. I don't think we've met. I applied for SSDI April of 2025 after diagnosis of DDD. By the way, that's probably degenerative disc disease, guys. January 2024, that got worse. Had a spinal fusion at C5-7 to treat neuropathy, gilopathy, and paralysis that failed. Okay. So just off the cuff, there's no question here, but I was going to say, oh, she's got another section though. DDD is not a really riveting impairment because most of us over the age of 35 or 40 probably have DDD, degenerative disc disease. It's a natural, unfortunately, kind of getting older. But this is where you got it. Spinal fusion, that's really indicative of something very severe, way more than garden variety DDD, right? Trika goes on to say, now ortho recommends cervical spine stimulator. Okay. Got denied and now appealing to ALJ. Any questions I should focus on to improve my chances of getting a favorable decision? Well, remember, it all comes down to your functional limitations. That's what this whole thing is about. The diagnosis has to be there to show that there's an impairment. Then the descriptions of treatment and complaints and objective signs and diagnostics show a severity. So someone could have DDD, like I was saying, and it's like, yawn. But yours is so bad that you had to have a fusion. So that speaks to something. And the fact that they're looking to a cervical spine stimulator means you have not been, like you said, remedied by the surgery. And I am so sorry about that. I mean, you were very brave to go through it, right? I mean, I'm sure it was scary. And then for it not to work after all that pondering, should I do it? Should I not do it? I'm really sorry about that. But hopefully this spinal stimulator, I do know that they have worked for people I know, but not always fully. And some people have to keep getting them tweaked and reprogrammed, and some people it just doesn't work for. But you want to focus on, look at your function report, by the way. Everything in there almost should be limited. Not that you can't do everything at all, and you're not an invalid in a bed that never can get out or in a wheelchair, but it should be how you do everything far, far less. Sitting is limited. It might hurt your neck. I mean, honestly, any upright position, sitting or standing, that dog is driving me crazy. Stop it. We're holding up, our neck is holding up our noggin. And it is a strain. It's a strain on your cervical spine, shoulder area. Things that happen with your shoulder can affect your neck. It's very back and forth and kind of interdependent. So look at all of those, like number 20, all those tests listed in those columns. And I don't know how you did on your function report, but think of it again and look at it this way. Any of these things am I able to do all of these things for 8 hours a day straight? If any of them are a no, and I'm sure probably all of them are a no, then figure out, well, how much can I do it? And then test yourself, even for sitting and standing. Stand at your kitchen counter, lean on it. How long can you stand there before it gets uncomfortable? And it doesn't mean you have to be screaming your head off uncomfortable in severe pain. When does it start getting uncomfortable to the point where the discomfort is kind of taking your attention? Same thing with sitting in an upright chair, not in a recliner or on the couch. How long can you sit upright, like you're paying attention, like you could have a table in front of you that you're doing stuff on? So if you're sitting upright, how long can you do that before that discomfort that's distracting, impacts you? How about lifting a gallon of milk? Can you do that repeatedly over an hour? Say, can you do it twice a minute for 60 minutes? No? But I would be trying definitely different things and write them in a notebook. And then if something is doable, sometimes people start out with 2 hours because that's like the interval in which they say, and the person, they certainly say for mental health things, can you pay attention for 2 hours? Can you do this for 2 hours? Physical stuff, 2 hours is a pretty long time. So if you can do it, it's going to kind of reflect that the problems are not so bad. Because then they say, all right, they do it for 2 hours. They go have their 15-minute break, come back and do that standing or sitting again. So you just got to look at everything really kind of microscopically, I think, and figure it out, write it down. And then those are the kind of things that are going to remind you of what you can't do when you're talking to the judge. As you know, if you have any questions or something you want in a video, post it under any video, any of the pre-recordeds or any video at all, because I will see it. I get to them in within about a week now. It's a little slower because there's just been a lot going on. And I try to keep it in the back of my head, like, oh, do a video on that, do a video. So I will do that. But in the meantime, a lot of the videos right now are clips of questions and answers. So people don't have to sit through this whole thing with a list out in the description of these are the things that are covered in this one. And there's like the title usually talks about one of the things that are talked, but you can't really fit too much in the title. One of the issues discussed, questions asked, but there is a short list at the top of the description so you can see what was touched on in that. So let's say you're interested in CDRs and you see that we touched on CDRs, maybe you want to catch that video and see what we talked about. All right. Thank you, Independence. I hope you have a great evening also. All right. Yeah, leave your question on the comments. That's perfect. Thank you all. KU, thank you to you too. Pam D, you as well. Nice to meet you. And I will see you guys next week. Hopefully, bring your friends and share, like, and what do they say? Comment. All right. Bye, guys.